This is one of those stories that sticks with you. It's about prejudice, redemption, and how life has a funny way of teaching the hardest lessons. It started on a flight, just another regular day in the skies. At least, that's what everyone thought at first. I remember seeing a black U.S. Army veteran step onto the plane. You could tell he carried himself with quiet pride, wearing his uniform, and there was this air about him, like he'd been through battles most of us couldn't begin to imagine. He silently took his seat, not asking for attention, just minding his business. Now a few rows away sat a young man. He was keeping to himself, but anyone paying close attention would recognize him. Yeah, it was Barron Trump. He wasn't loud or flashy. No, he was observant, with this sharp eye for detail. And then there was the air hostess. She was pregnant, and at the start, she seemed professional enough, greeting most passengers with a wide smile and that cheerful tone you'd expect. But then she got to the veteran. Her whole demeanor changed. Her smile faded, and her warm, practiced tone disappeared completely. She slapped his meal down on his tray like she couldn't be bothered. The thing is, she thought no one noticed that moment, but she was wrong. Someone was watching. Time went on, and the usual hum of a flight took over. Conversations, people reading or dozing off. And then, out of nowhere, the veteran's face twisted with pain. He clutched his stomach as beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. Something wasn't right. Passengers around him called for help. People started panicking, unsure of what to do. And then Barron spoke up. His voice cut through the commotion, sharp but calm. "Stop, don't panic, but check his food immediately." You know when someone speaks with authority, and you can't help but listen. That was Barron at that moment. Everyone froze. Even the hostess, who came rushing over, suddenly seemed cornered by his calm yet piercing gaze. He asked her, straight out, what was in the food. She stammered, trying to brush it off, claiming it was the same meal served to everyone, but Barron wasn't buying it. "This food smells strange," he said, narrowing his eyes at her. "What did you serve him?" She kept denying it, but you could see the unease creeping over her face, the kind of unease you can't hide when you know you've done something wrong. The cabin crew called the pilot, and the flight made an emergency landing to get the veteran medical care. The veteran was lucky that day. His life was saved. But the questions? Oh, they didn't stop there. The air hostess was taken off duty as an investigation started. Meanwhile, Barron couldn't shake the thought of how deep her hatred ran to do something so cruel to someone who had done nothing to her. Now, here's where life throws a curveball. Weeks passed, maybe months. The hostess found herself in a very different situation, on the verge of giving birth to her child. For most people, that's a time full of hope and joy, right? And at first, it was for her too. But not long after the baby was born, she noticed something. Her baby had dark skin. I can't imagine what went through her mind in that moment. Shock, denial, maybe even fear. She whispered to herself, "A black baby? How? How is this possible?" But there was no denying it. That child was hers, and he was black. If that wasn't enough of a shock, things got even worse. The baby's health took a sharp decline. His tiny breaths were shallow, and every moment felt like it could be his last. She begged the hospital staff to help him. She pleaded for her baby's life. But instead of compassion, she was met with cold indifference. One of the doctors finally spoke, and his words were like knives. "It's not a priority case," he said dismissively. "We're understaffed, overwhelmed. You'll have to look elsewhere." Her world was collapsing. Can you imagine? A mother, desperate to save her baby, being turned away like that. She sobbed, begged them to see the innocence in her child. "Please," she whispered, "he's just a baby. He's innocent. Don't punish him." And then, out of nowhere, came that voice again, the one that had stopped chaos in the sky. Calm, firm, and commanding. It was Barron Trump. "Stop," he said, stepping into the room. "This ends now." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You could feel the authority in his tone. He looked the doctor straight in the eye and said, "A child is suffering and you're denying care because it's not a priority? I thought doctors swore an oath to save lives." The doctor stammered, trying to offer excuses. There weren't enough resources. They were doing their best. But Barron cut through the nonsense. "No excuses," he said. "This isn't about resources. It's about prejudice. Get this baby treated now." With that, the staff scrambled to help. The baby finally received the care he needed, and as his little chest started to rise and fall more steadily, Barron turned to the air hostess. She was standing there, frozen, clutching her baby, her face a mix of shame and overwhelming gratitude. She whispered, I don't know what to say." Barron looked at her and replied, "You don't need to say anything to me, but look at your child. He didn't ask for this, to be part of your hatred. Change for him. He'll need you to be better than you were." She broke down crying, nodding as if his words had finally cracked open something inside her. But Barron wasn't done. He turned back to the staff. "And as for you, do better. Because one day someone might judge you, just as you've judged others. Think about how that feels." The baby recovered. A few days later, the hostess, holding her son in her arms, found herself standing outside a hospital room. Inside was the veteran she had wronged. She knocked hesitantly, then stepped inside, her hands trembling. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "But I needed to come here. I was terrible to you, treated you like you were less than me. I thought I was better. But now, life has shown me how wrong I've been. I'm so sorry." The veteran looked at her for a long moment before speaking. His voice was steady, gentle. "Sometimes life teaches us what words can't," he said. "Forgiveness isn't mine to give. It's yours to find within yourself. Raise your son to be better than we were. Teach him love. That's how you truly make amends." She broke down into tears again, then thanked him and left. Watching from a quiet distance, Barron smiled faintly. He didn't need recognition. He didn't need anyone's thanks. He had done what mattered, helping people see the power of love, compassion, and equality. And that's the thing about life. It'll keep teaching us lessons until we're ready to learn. Hopefully, stories like these help us all make better choices when it matters most. Prejudice blinds. Hatred hurts. But love always heals. Choose love. Every time.